Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Ron Hoppe. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions, and I'd like to start by thanking each and every one of you for taking the time to join us today. We've had a tremendous response to this webinar presentation. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you, whether you are an existing health staff applicant, whether you are an applicant that is currently evaluating what your opportunities to live and work in the United States may be, whether you are with another recruitment firm joining us today, whoever you are, welcome to everyone. I see some of you are already introducing yourselves in the chat, and I always like to start these webinar presentations by asking you to take just a brief moment and in the chat feature, just type in for us the country from which you're joining us from today. We're always excited to see that we have applicants from many different countries, and again today, we'd be very interested in knowing the different countries where everyone is joining us from today. We have a very interesting and a very important topic that we're going to cover today related to speeding up the immigration process. This information that we are going to share today is going to be valuable to applicants that already have current immigration petitions underway to the United States. This presentation will also be of interest to those individuals who are currently evaluating their options and opportunities for living and working in the United States. And while the information today will be primarily geared to registered nurse applicants, it will also have some application to anyone who's joining us that is part of another occupational group, perhaps medical laboratory technologists, radiology technologists, and as well our nurse aid candidates. So just by way of introduction, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. Please enter your questions as they come to mind in the chat box feature, and we'll try to leave some time and answer as many questions as we can so that everyone can get the most out of your investment of time in our session today. You know, the question of how long is it going to take for my immigration application to be completed is probably the most common question that our team here at WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions receives. It's obviously a very important question, and once you make the decision to move forward, to move and to further your career and your future here in the United States, obviously wanting to know how long it's going to take is a key consideration and a key concern. And we want to address that very quickly today. You know, also, I'll say just by way of introduction around this issue, there is a lot of what would appear to be conflicting information that you as an applicant will find in various places on social media, different online groups, etc., where this topic of how long does it take is very frequently discussed. And when we're talking about speeding up the immigration process, we're going to dig in today into what are the factors that make an application go from start to finish in the shortest possible time. What are the factors that impact some applications taking longer than others? We will take a look at what is your recruitment agency's responsibility in this process and what role do they play. we'll take a look at what you as an applicant, what your responsibilities are in terms of making the process go as quickly as possible, and some really useful tips that you can use to ensure that your process is going as quickly as possible. And then, of course, we'll talk about the factors that come into play in dealing with the U.S. government agencies that impact on the overall timing as well. So with that being said, let's dive right in. And obviously, deciding to migrate to the United States is going to be one of the biggest decisions of your life. And the first thing I would like to share with everyone this morning or today in the context of how do you get to the United States in the shortest possible time? I think the first thing that I would propose in this regard is that you have to prepare yourself as you would prepare yourself when you are setting out for any long journey. You wouldn't go to visit a country halfway around the world on vacation without learning about that country, without making plans, without packing appropriately. You would never just throw things in a bag, show up at the airport, get on that plane, and have the attitude of, well, we'll see what we see when we get there. One of the key things that you as an applicant can do to ensure that you're able to arrive in the United States in the shortest possible time is to educate yourself. Let me explain this just a little bit further. If you are a registered nurse, a medical laboratory technologist, whatever healthcare occupation you are in, I think one of the key factors that you need to understand before you set out on this journey is to understand the different types of opportunities that are available to you. Primarily, you will be presented with two distinct models, two distinct ways in which you can come to the United States. One is the direct hire permanent placement model. And the second is a staffing agency or contract labor model. And understanding the differences between those two is a very, very fundamental requirement that you should set out to address. I say this is important because we often get contacted by applicants who have recently accepted a job offer with someone in the staffing agency or travel nurse model, and then they come to learn more about the direct hire model, which we here at WorldWide HealthStaff provide. It's our approach to international recruiting. So we have many applicants that contact us shortly after having accepted an offer from a staffing agency, only to say to us, oh my goodness, I didn't fully understand the differences between these two models. I just recently signed a contract, but I'd like to transfer to your direct hire agency. Well, that's fine and good, and that can be done under certain circumstances, but in the end, it's going to take some time. If you've started a petition somewhere else, and now you need to sort of change tracks and you want to have a petition with another provider that is offering direct hire, it is going to take some time, even if you have a petition that can be recovered. So the first thing that you can do to save time is make sure that you have a clear understanding for yourself of the type of opportunity that you are looking to pursue. Let me jump down to the third bullet point here because it's very much related, and that point is identify your priorities. What are you looking for in the opportunity to live and work in the United States? Is your priority to find the perfect position that you've always wanted to have, the position that you've been working for all of your career? Is that your number one consideration? And if it is, that's certainly fine. Is your primary consideration that you want to be located in a particular location, in a particular geography? Or are there other priorities that you have for yourself that are going to drive your ultimate decision, as to the offer that you will accept? Again, we see candidates not infrequently come to us and say, you know, I've accepted a position with this agency or that agency. I accepted that position. It's not really what I'm looking for. I really want to be here, or I really want to do this. Can you help me? Can you help us? Can you help me? And even if the answer is yes, again, if you have started down the path and now you want to sort of get onto a different path, that is going to add some time to the overall timeline that it would take for you to arrive in the US. So understand for yourself going in very, very clearly the difference between direct hire and staffing agency options. And also make sure that as you begin to speak with recruiters, that you have a very clear understanding of what your personal priorities are, so that you can communicate those to whichever recruiter you may be working with, so that they can work to find the position that is going to align with your needs. In this regard, another important point I would make at this point is the recruiter that you work with matters a lot. The recruiter that you work with matters a lot. If you have been approached with a recruiter who is communicating information that is significantly different than what the established or other recruiters are communicating, that should be a huge red flag. If someone is saying we can get you to the US in 6 months, we can get you to the US in some very short period of time, and everybody else is saying it's going to take considerably longer, then you should take that outlier information as a red flag, and probably you want to explore opportunities with other recruitment firms. It matters a lot. The recruiter's experience matters a lot. The recruiter's resources matter a lot. Even if you are speaking with a recruitment firm that seems to meet your requirements, take the time and inquire what resources they have on their team to support you and all of the other applicants that they may have in process at that time. Getting a job offer is just the beginning of the process. Does the recruiter have the resources to help guide you through the entire immigration process, the licensure process, and eventually the relocation process in the most timely way? Our team here at HealthStaff continues to grow. It continues to grow quickly. We are adding staff resources virtually in every area of our organization. And we're also adding resources in an increasing number of countries around the world, all of which are our direct employees. And we're doing this in an effort to be able to support our candidates as best as we possibly can. We are actively working towards having staff available to support our candidates live and in real time on a 24/7 basis. So the recruiter that you choose to work with is going to have an impact on how long it's going to take for you to arrive to the United States. There is a saying you might be familiar with that says, measure twice, cut once. It refers to building or construction where you want to make sure you're cutting a board to the right length the first time, because once you've made that cut, your options are limited, what you're going to do with that board going forward. So as you prepare for your journey to the United States, measure twice. inform yourself, educate yourself, and then cut once. Make one decision that's in line with your priorities so that you can then move forward as quickly as possible. Now, I've already seen in the chat here today, multiple times people are asking, well, how long should my visa application take? And the answer, the honest answer is, it depends. Now, we'll talk a little bit here in terms of time ranges, but obviously, the first thing that needs to be understood is the visa processing time varies by the type of visa that's being applied for. I think that's readily understood by everyone. So not all visas are processed on the same timeline. In fact, as it relates to healthcare workers, both at the professional level and at the support level, visa processing times are different for each type of visa that you may be processed on. So let's take a look at some of the more common visas and start to explore how long should my visa application take. So the first, probably most common visa used by healthcare workers is registered nurses, the EB3 permanent resident visa. And the timeline for processing these visas has fluctuated over the years. It's fluctuated greatly at times. In more recent times, particularly during the pandemic, premium processing has become far more common and far more popular for EB3 permanent resident visas. We'll talk about premium processing more here as we go along. But premium processing definitely impacts the processing time for an application. But currently, I would say that if you are a registered nurse with an EB3 petition, that you should for yourself plan for the process from the time that your immigration petition is filed to the time that your visa is approved, to be somewhere in the range of 15 to 18 months at current processing times. These processing times could become shorter. These processing times might get extended somewhat based on the capacity and productivity of the US CIS, the National Visa Center, and US embassies and consulates. But that is an approximate time frame at the present time. Of course, anytime you have a large number of candidates being processed, some applications will go through more quickly than anticipated, and some will take longer than anticipated, and we'll talk about reasons why that happens and how those situations can be mitigated as we go along here. The EB3 permanent resident process for all other applicants other than registered nurses is probably going to take slightly longer overall because of the labor certification requirements are different than they are for registered nurses. Suffice to say, if you are looking to come on an EB3 visa and you are not a registered nurse, that you can readily plan for that process to take 2 years. And depending again on government processing times, it could possibly even be a little bit longer. So just again, general timeline there. H-1B regular processing. If you are someone that has graduated with a 4-year university degree related to your occupation, you may be eligible for an H-1B visa, provided that you're not a registered nurse. H-1B visas are available to RNs only on very, very rare cases. So in the context of bedside nursing, H-1B isn't really a consideration. H-1B visa processing times will vary widely rather. There's really two tracks for H-1B. The most common one is what we'll call regular processing, and that is where an employer that has extended an offer to you will make an application on your behalf for an H-1B visa. That process takes place each year in April, at the beginning of April, and your application will be submitted. The U.S. government for the last many years has received far more applications than there are actually H-1B regular visas available, resulting in them actually conducting a lottery to select those applications that will in fact go forward for processing. If you are selected in the lottery and your application for a regular H-1B goes forward, in the pre-pandemic world, we would have said that you would be in the United States if your application is selected in April, that there was a very good probability that you would be in the United States before the end of that same year. Processing times have recently extended for H-1B visas, but all in all, if you are selected in the lottery, you can expect that process is going to take somewhere 6 to 12 months for you to be able to arrive in the United States. A second H-1B track is the H-1B cap exempt track. H-1B cap exempt applies only to a very select class of employers. Those employers who are both not-for-profit and who are formally associated with or affiliated with a U.S. institution of higher education are generally exempt from the regular H-1B limits and caps. And these employers have the opportunity to file an H-1B petition at any time throughout the year. And they also have the option of filing that petition with or without premium processing. And depending on whether premium processing is used or not, candidates processed for H-1B cap exempt can expect to arrive in the United States anywhere within 3 to 9 months of that petition being filed. So really, really very quickly. Again, processing times vary. What the processing time was last year, what it is this year, and what it is next year are not necessarily the same. And we're going to talk now next about common issues that extend visa processing times. And I would ask that you pay particular attention to this slide and take some notes, because there is an opportunity here for you, again, as you inform and educate yourself, to ask some very pertinent questions of the recruiters that you're speaking with to ensure that your application is going to go forward in the shortest time, and that ultimately your visa will get issued at the earliest time. So, common issues that extend visa issuance times. Number one, a lack of a valid prevailing wage certification and or job posting notice from the employer. If these terms aren't familiar to you, I'll explain just very, very briefly. If you are being processed for an EB-3 visa application, part of the requirements for your employer to be able to file that petition is they have to include with that filing something called a prevailing wage certification, which is obtained from the U.S. Department of Labor, and what we refer to as a job posting notice. Both of these documents have to be included with an initial filing of a petition for it to be approved. Now, How does this impact your application processing time? In the past, employers used to be able to get a prevailing wage certification from the Department of Labor in about 60 days. That was not too bad, and 60 days, often it would take that long to plan a recruitment initiative, a recruitment drive. So even if interviews took place now and a prevailing wage was just applied for now, within 60 days that would be received, and if everything else was in order, that petition could then go forward. Today, it is taking 6 to 7 months for employers to obtain this same prevailing wage certification. So what this means is if you interview today with an employer that has just very recently filed for their prevailing wage application, even though you receive an offer today and you accept that offer, your petition actually will not be able to be filed for maybe 4, 5, or 6 months while the employer is waiting for that prevailing wage certification. Here at WorldWide HealthStaff, as we are working with our employers, we are working diligently to schedule interviews around the time that we expect the employer to have that prevailing wage certification, or we're scheduling interviews where the employer already has a prevailing wage certification in a way such that once you receive and accept an offer, then your process is able to move forward to the visa application filing stage seamlessly. You don't want to be waiting 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, if it can at all be avoided, waiting for a prevailing wage certification to come in. So when you are speaking with potential employers or recruiters that you have connected with, a fundamental question to ask is, do you have in hand a prevailing wage certification for the position that I will be interviewed for? Critical question. And if the answer is no, we don't, the follow-up question is, when do you expect to receive it? Maybe it's going to expect it to come in the next 2 or 4 weeks. That's fine. But if it's 4 or 6 months, you may want to continue looking for other opportunities that meet your requirements where there is a prevailing wage certification in hand, so that your application can go forward as expeditiously as possible. Somewhat related to the prevailing wage certification is something that's called the job posting notice. This is also a document that is required in order to be able to file your immigration petition. And as you ask employers about whether they have or are about to have a prevailing wage certification for the position that you're interviewing for, you should also ask if they have a currently valid job posting notice, and if not, when do they expect to receive it. So the number one common issue that can extend your visa processing time is accepting an offer from an employer that doesn't have a current prevailing wage certification, and therefore there is a delay in their ability to file your petition. Secondly, another consideration that impacts on the time it takes for you to ultimately receive your visa is the USCIS issuing what is called a request for evidence, or RFE. If you are in the process, you may have experienced an RFE, or you've heard of friends that have received this. This happens when the USCIS receives an application and there's either required information that's missing, or they're seeking information, additional information or clarification on something that was submitted. This point relates back, I believe, very strongly to selecting the right recruiter. and ensuring that that recruiter is working with a legal team that is highly experienced specifically in healthcare immigration. You do not want to be dealing with an attorney who has last done a healthcare application 3 months or 6 months or 12 months ago, or somebody that does a handful of applications a year. You want to make sure that the recruiter or the agency that you're working with is working with an attorney or a legal firm that is highly experienced in filing these types of petitions. At WorldWide HealthStaff, we have our own in-house legal team that is filing a very large volume of petitions on a monthly basis. Likewise, we are also partnered with some of the largest healthcare immigration law firms in the country that also support many of our applicants. So the way to avoid or minimize your application receiving an RFE is to ensure that you are working with a very competent immigration law firm. Now, let me just say this. You can be working with the best immigration law firm in the country. That does not mean that an RFE may not be issued. These are sometimes issued at random. These are sometimes issued when they should not be issued, but making sure that you're working with someone that is highly experienced, that's going to file your petition in a very thorough and a very complete way, is going to ensure that the probability of you receiving an RFE is at an absolute minimum. Filing an immigration application is not a do-it-yourself job on the part of anyone. So this, again, as you inform and educate yourself before you set out on this journey, ensure that you have an understanding as to who the attorney may be that's going to be handling your application. Now, the next one is something that you as applicants have a control over, a direct control over. So if you are a nurse or one of the other occupations that require a visa screen certificate, one factor that can delay the issuance of your visa is not having your visa screen certificate completed by the time of your embassy interview. You know, I think everyone who's on this journey or about to go on this journey is aware and familiar with the requirement to have a visa screen. And I do certainly appreciate and respect that sometimes completing the visa screen requirements immediately are impacted by a number of factors and perhaps financial resources coming to that. But it is never too early once you have received and accepted an offer from a U.S. employer to get started on the visa screen certification process. That includes taking one of the required English language exams. So this is one you as the applicant have a direct impact on. Your recruiter or your agency should be able to support and assist you with questions that you have in this regard and in making this application. But do not delay or do not postpone completing the visa screen requirements once you have received and accepted a job offer. Applicants who leave this till late in the process sometimes get hung up because despite being confident of passing the language test, they don't do so on the first opportunity. And you don't want to be one of those that has an embassy interview date come up only not to be able to present a valid visa screen certificate at that time. So that's something that impacts the time it takes to have your visa issued, and it's something that you can certainly control as an applicant. The fourth thing that impacts the time of visa issuance is something that is referred to as the 221G notice. This is a document that is sometimes issued at the time of embassy interview. And the reason for a 221G notice being issued can vary widely. Essentially, this notice says that your visa can't be issued at this time because some additional information or some additional review is being required. Again, this is one of these things that ultimately you don't have complete control over, your recruiter or your employer doesn't have complete control over. But again, they have the ability to impact this and to absolutely minimize the possibility of a 221G notice being filed by ensuring that they've gotten to you the necessary documents that you need to present at the time of the embassy interview, that they have taken the time to meet with you to help you prepare well for your embassy interview so you can go and attend with confidence. But this is something that can impact the overall time that it takes to issue a visa. Again, ensuring that the attorney you're working with has the expertise and the experience to file a complete application for you in the first place, and that you are well prepared by your recruiter or agency to attend your embassy interview, together with having all of the required appropriate documents in your possession, are all things that contribute significantly to avoiding a 221G notice. When such a notice is issued, the issue, depending on what it is, can sometimes be resolved in a matter of days, but it is also something that can drag out to 3 or 6 months. We've even seen it longer. And obviously, that's a huge disappointment when you went to the embassy with the expectation that your visa would be issued, only now to have to wait for weeks and maybe even months longer. So common issues that can impact the time it takes to issue for your visa to be issued. We talked about the lack of a prevailing wage. That's something right up front at the front end of the process you want to know about. RFEs from USCIS and how those can be, the likelihood of those can be minimized. Making sure that you have your visa screen certificate in hand is also going to ensure that you can receive your visa in the shortest possible time, and then being well prepared with the appropriate documents for your embassy interview. Excuse me, also very, very important. So just again, let me talk for a moment about why do some applications get completed faster than others, right? And as I said previously, for an application to go through the process from start to finish requires many, many factors to be addressed. And the truth is that some of these factors can be impacted and influenced by your recruiter. Some of these factors are going to be influenced by you, the applicant. And some of these factors are going to be influenced and impacted by the USCIS, the National Visa Center, and the embassy or consulate. And these are really beyond anyone's control. So let's talk for a moment about the factors that the recruiter has direct influence over and can impact in a positive or negative way in terms of how long it's going to take for your application to get processed. So we talked already about the prevailing wage certification. I will repeat this again because it is so terribly important. So the first thing that your recruiter influences is ensuring that a prevailing wage certification is available at the time that you are being interviewed, or that they expect to have it within 2, 3, or 4 weeks of your interview being completed. so that, right, so that your application can move from offer acceptance to petition filed seamlessly and in a short period of time. Another key area where the recruiter or agency influences the time that it takes for your application to be processed is the internal staff resources of that recruiter or of that agency. Does the organization have the staff resources available to work with you through every step of the process, to work with you and manage your application proactively so that you are always aware of what the next step in your process is going to be? Excuse me, so that you can always be working on preparing for the next step. Not that you are reacting to the progress of your case, but that you are proactively completing whatever the next step may be given where your application is at. So another factor that influences ultimately the time it takes for your petition to be approved is just completing each of the steps that are required in process in the timeliest way possible. And is your recruiter or agency capable of supporting you in doing that? We here at WorldWide HealthStaff have developed a very, very detailed applicant roadmap that we present to each applicant at the time of their job offer presentation, so they can begin to be fully informed as to what every step in the process is going to be. In a moment here, we're actually going to share a link for everyone to our immigration roadmap that you can download as a participant in our session here today, and have that for your future reference. Other factors that the recruiter impacts, in the direct hire model, relates to the recruiter having a very good working relationship with the employer. Sometimes it's possible that the recruiter can do everything that they're able to do, but there's holdups at the employer end in terms of signing necessary documents, etc. So inquiring about the working relationship that the recruiter has with their particular employer clients is also something that you would want to learn about. So these are some of the key factors that the recruiter influences, that the attorney managing your case influences, and depending on how well these things are completed, it may result that in your application progressing either more quickly or more slowly. Other factors that impact the processing times are related to you, the applicant. And some of these are related to documentation. Regardless of whose offer you accept, they're going to require from you a certain set of documentation that has to be included with your filing. So it is not too early, even before you start working with a particular recruitment organization, to begin collecting the documents that are ultimately going to have to be submitted. Sometimes applicants have a difficult time, and if you do not proactively collect your documents, the time it takes for you to do so is later on going to impact the total processing time of your application. The most common documents, obviously, are things like birth certificates, marriage certificates, passport, photo ID pages, educational transcripts, copies of your verifying your current professional license, etc. Any reputable agency should be able to provide you very, very quickly with a checklist of the documents that are required. And we here at WorldWide HealthStaff would be happy to share sort of the basic document checklist that every applicant needs. So our encouragement and our advice here is that you begin collecting all the documents that are going to be needed as soon as possible, so that you can submit those to your recruiter, sometimes even before you receive a job offer letter. Or accept an offer. So that's something that you influence. The other key things that you as the applicant influence that relates to how long it's going to take for your visa to be issued, I've already touched on, is making sure that you have the visa screen certificate process completed if that's required for you. That means also taking and passing one of the required English language exams. Those are really super key factors that you influence and that you have control over. Again, you do not want to be that person who is scheduled for an embassy interview only to find that you're unable to get your visa because your visa screen certificate is lacking. And then USCIS, NVC, and embassy factors that are beyond the influence of your recruiter, your employer, and that you really as an applicant have no influence over. And that relates to just the general operation of these US government agencies. Again, we want to be filing petitions that are readily approvable. That means they're complete, they're well organized, they're consistent. But even with all of that, there is no recruiter that has direct influence over any of these US government agencies. And it is very, very frustrating for everyone when some applications go faster than expected, some take longer than expected. Every now and then, believe it or not, in the US government system, an application is simply lost. It may have progressed to a certain point and then it just disappears. Oftentimes when applicants feel that their case is taking longer than it should, we'll often get emails like, my friend's petition was filed, at the same time as mine. Theirs has progressed to a certain point. Mine hasn't. What's wrong? Why not? Understood. These circumstances can be very frustrating, but be aware also that these U.S. agencies have posted general processing timelines. If you are concerned about the status of your application and it is the processing time is still within the published range by that U.S. government agency, it is not even possible to make an inquiry at that point. Applications have to be outside of these posted processing times. And even then, it is very unpredictable as to when a response to that inquiry will be received. So that is, the functioning and the productivity of the U.S. government agencies is very impactful. For those of you that are registered nurses or had colleagues who are registered nurses, you may be familiar with the very significant backlog that was in place late last year in terms of applicants being ready for U.S. embassy interviews, but having to wait months and months and months to be scheduled for an embassy interview. That is, I think, a very real, very recent example of where the processing times, in this case of the embassy, added to the overall timeline and duration that it took for you to receive your visa. Now, in more recent months, we've seen that particular issue improve, and we hope that the number of embassy interviews will continue to increase so that there's not a bottleneck at that stage. We've even through the pandemic at the USCIS stage, we've seen things move fairly expeditiously. But just know that there are at times issues that arise related to the functioning and the capacity of a U.S. government agency that no one has direct control over. Want to wrap up here, start to wrap up so we have some time for questions and answers. Again, things the recruiter should do, take note of this, and know also that if you've not been taking notes, that everyone that registered for this session today will receive a recording of this presentation within the next 24 hours. Feel free to review it. Feel free to share the link of this presentation with your friends and colleagues who were not able to attend live for our presentation here today. So again, in terms of things recruiters should do, recruit only when the prevailing wage is expected to be in hand, submit complete and correct visa applications, respond as quickly as possible to RFEs. You know, when an RFE is issued, oftentimes USCIS will give up to 90 days to respond. And sometimes some time is required to gather whatever information that they may be asking for. But at other times, these RFEs can be responded to fairly simply. And you want to ensure that your recruiter or your attorney is responding to these RFEs as quickly as possible and is not just responding to RFEs 2 or 3 days before the 90-day deadline, because that may be adding unnecessarily time for your ultimate process to be completed. And then recruiters have to have the necessary resources to guide applicants through the immigration process proactively. Let me just say this very, very quickly. When you are considering the different recruiters that you may work with, the first place and probably the last place that you should look for recruiters that you could consider would be the CGF&S Alliance for Ethical Healthcare Recruitment, where they have certified a limited number of recruitment firms for their ethical recruitment practices. If you go to the CGF&S Alliance website, just do a search, CGF&S Alliance, you'll find the name of those agencies there. I would absolutely caution you and warn you against even thinking about dealing with any organization that is not listed as a member there. So I mentioned to you the immigration roadmap. This is really not an ideal PowerPoint slide, but this is just to give you some indication as to the level of detail that we provide to our candidates through each step of the process. Again, I believe that a link to this document is available or will be available before we wrap up our presentation today. And I certainly invite you to download that for your reference. Things that applicants should do, again, just to recap very quickly, is collect all relevant documents proactively, so you have those when they are needed. Once the process starts, it is important that you are in your email every day and that you are responding to your recruiter within 24 hours of them reaching out to you. At WorldWide HealthStaff, when our case managers or our recruiters are reaching out to applicants, it's because there's something important we have to share with you or something important that we need to receive from you. We're very respectful of everyone's time. We're not going to contact you and ask you what the weather was or what your plans are for the weekend. So when you receive a communication, respond promptly. Take and pass the language test sooner rather than later. And if visa screen is required, apply for visa screen no later than the time that your USCIS approval notice is received. Ideally, you want to start that process when your petition is filed. Now, after all of that, once you receive your visa, you're still not complete in the overall process. Receiving your visa is not the end. Factors to consider that will impact on your relocation timeline is what are the resignation period requirements from your current employer? Is that resignation something that you can do prior to receiving your visa? When should you do it? Do you wait until after you receive your visa? That is a very important question to answer. Relocating to another country obviously is going to require wrapping up personal and family affairs in your current location. Start thinking about what those are and what you need to do well before the time you get your visa, so that you're not going to be confronted with having to deal with these issues after your visa is issued, or starting to deal with these issues, only to find that they may take many more months before you're actually in a position to depart. Work on your licensure in the United States. At HealthStaff, our licensure team works very closely with all of our candidates to ensure that they're completing these processes as proactively as possible. And then also understand that it's going to take some time to arrange travel and initial or temporary housing in the US. And you want to start learning about these things, working with your recruiter, your agency, to understand what their role is, what they're providing, what allowances might be available to you. Our dedicated travel and relocations team here at HealthStaff works with all of our candidates to ensure the most convenient air travel schedule is arranged, and also that the stress of arranging housing before you get here is addressed in a very proactive way. So again, planning to have your visa issued in the shortest possible time is important, but it's also important to understand that once you get your visa, it doesn't mean that the next day you can just simply get on an airplane and leave. In summary, impacting and speeding up the immigration process requires everyone doing their part. Your recruiter, your employer, your attorney, or the attorney managing your case, you as the applicant impact on this, and then a USCIS, NVC, and embassy. Let me just say from our perspective here at WorldWide HealthStaff, we are engaged in an ongoing and constant process of process improvement, where we analyze on a weekly and monthly basis how long it is taking our applicants individually and in total to progress throughout the whole process. We have essentially broken down the process from interview to visa issuance into 13 steps. We monitor very, very carefully how many days applicants are spending at each step, working to identify how can we reduce the length of time that the average applicant is spending in each step, right? So if we have 13 steps and we can eliminate, just for example, say we can eliminate 3 days on average in each step, then that means we're eliminating ultimately 39 days from the overall process. So ultimately that means you're going to arrive a month sooner than you otherwise would have. So our commitment here at WorldWide HealthStaff towards shortening the time, speeding up the immigration time, is a commitment to continuous process improvement. We are increasingly utilizing very advanced data and analytics to help us evaluate our processes, to help evaluate opportunities that we may have to support you in getting through the process more quickly. But at the end, it's a relationship, and it does take everyone doing their part. Now, we are right at time. We have spent an hour together. I've gone a little longer than I thought I would, but I certainly want to remain available, and you're invited to stay online. I see there's just been a barrage a barrage of questions coming in. We'll do our best to answer maybe some of the most common or most popular questions that have come in. And also here on this slide, you have the opportunity right now where you can go to this web address here that's provided on the screen and chat in real time with one of our recruiters live. So we have recruiters right now on standby. If you have a specific recruitment question, please feel free to go to this web address here, and a member of our recruiting team will be happy to respond to your question. This link is provided for recruiting questions only. If you have case management questions or other non-recruiting issues, just share your question here in the chat, and we'll do our very best to answer them. So with that being said, Tracy and CJ, what are some of the more frequent questions that we've received in our session today?
Hello, Ron. Okay, so hello, everybody. I'm CJ Campos, and I'm the Applicant Engagement Manager of WorldWide HealthStaff. So I'm browsing the questions right here. So let me see. This question is from Joni Martin Manuel. He said, "Hi, my petition was approved last 31st of March. I sent my visa screen certificate last June 20 of 2022. So the question is, how long will it take before I receive my fee bill?" So what's the estimate for that?
Yeah, fee bills are frequently issued within 2 to 3 months. It's also not uncommon for it to take a little bit longer. So if your application was forwarded to the NVC March, April, you should be expecting to get your fee bill anytime now if you've not already received it.
Okay, awesome. So next question is from Junlex Doidora. The question is, can you have EB3 application in process while having a current TN visa?
The answer is absolutely you can. So if you are currently working on a TN visa, you can have an EB3 application. Probably that EB3 application will be also in process in conjunction with an adjustment of status application. But the answer to that question clearly is yes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So next question is from Akin Wumi. And the question is, he's saying that, please, how long does it take after the DOL certificate to get document submitted for I-140 and for the employee to submit the papers to the lawyer?
Just repeat that question, please,
okay.
CJ.
Sorry. So that's how long does it take after the DOL certificate to get the document submitted for I-140?
So once the DOL certifies a perm application, if everything is in order, as I said, prevailing wage in hand, etc., then there's no reason why that petition could not be filed in 4 to 6 weeks very easily. Again, that's a general guideline. And if there's a specific case-related question, that obviously would have to be reviewed. But in normal circumstances, being able to go from DOL certification to I-140 filing is something that should be able to take place fairly expeditiously.
Okay, awesome. Let me just check here. So pretty much there are a lot of questions about the DOL, so that's has been answered. So
Okay.
this is for last 2 questions. Like here's a question from Rexy Carion. Any insights about next visa bulletin for September? So will it still be current?
So fantastic question. So, you know, I'm not going to take time to explain what the visa bulletin is. Please look that up if you're not sure. But the visa bulletin for September is expected here sometime in the next 13, 14 days. This is going to be a very, very interesting visa bulletin, as September is the last month of the U.S. government fiscal year. So if there is to be any category where visas have been fully allocated or fully used, then that is obviously going to show up here in the September visa bulletin. I think right now indications are that the availability of RN visas is going to remain current, including for the Philippines heading into September. EB3 petitions for non-skilled positions have retrogressed slightly in recent visa bulletins. We'll be watching for the October visa bulletin, which will be the first one in the new government fiscal year, to see whether the priority date for the low-skilled workers returns to current or moves forward significantly. Predicting the future visa bulletin is a dangerous thing to do because sometimes there are surprises. But we're not expecting any backlog in RN applications right now, and we're looking forward in October to the unskilled workers returning much closer to current, if not current, for October.
Okay, awesome. All right. So I think that's all for today. And if you have further questions, you can always reach out to your case managers. Shoot them an email, and for sure they will reply to your queries. All right.
All right, CJ, thank you for helping with that. Let me just say to everyone that joined us today, thank you very much for your interest. Thank you very much for your participation by sharing your questions and comments. There's obviously many case-specific questions here that we're just unable to get to. Again, connect with your health staff case manager if you're at that stage. If you are a nurse aide applicant and you're concerned that you haven't heard from us, if you have sent your resume to us at na@healthstaff.org, please know we have received your application. The volume of applications that we are receiving for the nurse aide role continues to be very, very large. We currently have in excess of 20,000 applications that we need to process. So it's not that we are ignoring you. It's not that we haven't received your resume. We are working expeditiously through evaluating this very large number of applicants that continue to come in on a daily basis. And we're grateful, and we thank you for your interest. The WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions team is available and willing and able to support you on your journey to the United States, regardless of the healthcare occupation that you may be working in. We welcome your inquiries. We welcome your application. We are working with employers today, virtually in every state. In fact, we now are recruiting for employers in 49 out of the 50 states, which we're very excited about. And we would certainly welcome your inquiry. We would welcome the opportunity to connect with you. Feel free to reach out anytime through any of our social media channels, through our website. Thank you again for your participation today. Please be on the lookout for an email with a recording of this session that you will receive in the next 24 hours. Please feel free to share that with your friends. Wherever you are, may God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you, and bye for now.